Hello my friends, I am Indie Pride. Welcome back to Milk and Cookies Total War. Hope you all are enjoying the King and the Warlord DLC as thoroughly as I am. This replay is a battle I fought with Oakley High Def from THFE Productions. Oakley is commanding the Orcs of the Bloody Hand and leading his army, Wurrzag the Great Green Prophet, atop his unique Warboard Spleen Ripper. Wurrzag is really interesting. He is insanely expensive to field, around 3,000 gold when fully kitted out, but that's just because he has a bunch of unique abilities that you don't necessarily have to bring. The coolest is the Effigy of the Git, which is like a net of Ammontok that freezes units in place, but does damage over time as well. In terms of damage, it's best for single entities like enemy lords, but it can also freeze whole units and straight up prevent them from getting their charge bonus, which is really powerful used correctly. He also has a map-wide 40% chance to miscast for enemy spellcasters, which is pretty awesome. And here we have the Krimson Killerz, black orcs with dual-wielding anti-infantry and AoE attacks, so they can be pretty threatening, and they have an awesome color scheme. And the orcs of the Bloody Hand in general have a really awesome-looking new color scheme for us to enjoy. I think their black orcs look a little bit more menacing than the typical green-skinned black orcs. And here we have Shelob, the Arachnarok queen. She can summon spiderlings and is a more powerful version of the regular Arachnarok spider variant. We have a bunch of assorted other units, orc boys up front, a bunch of big guns, and some savage orcs slowly moving through the trees now. So Oakley's going to be trying to surround and overwhelm me, and the Rusty Arrers, which are out on his left flank, will help him shoot me to pieces from long range. He also has a bunch of giants. You can look at the Rusty Arrers right now. They have the Sunder Armor ability, which gives them minus 32 armor every time they shoot, and it'll be, I think, on a 10-second cooldown. So whatever they shoot into will have their armor reduced by 32 for 10 seconds. Across the way, I am playing as Clan Angrund. Brought a very diverse army. This is the Skyhammer Gyrobomber on Overwatch. Can drop multiple bombs per payload. Has some serious DPS, but is very expensive to field. Here we have the Old Grumblers that have the AoE stamina augment, and then the Lobber, which has a minus 16 morale penalty and can be stacked up with the ethereal units, which I'll talk about probably in another video, but I think that the Lobber with ethereal units that cause terror is just an insane combination that I think we're going to see a lot from dwarf players in ranked matches and multiplayer in general. Get a good look at the Night Goblin as he's slung across the battlefield towards the greenskins, and here we have the Rune Lord, which has been really good for me every time I've used him. He has a 75-meter AoE on Rune of Oath and Steel, which is significantly bigger than the Runesmiths, and it buffs up armor by 30 instead of 15, and most of his runes seem to have longer range or bigger AoEs, although the 40% damage reduction from Rune of Negation seems to be the same. You can also make your Rune Lord unbreakable, which is really nice, and the model is amazing. I really like the Rune Lord in the back. We have some Dragonback Slayers, hopefully to deal with old Sheila, make sure she doesn't get into any high-value targets, and with that bonus versus large, ward off some of the squigs and other units that will be trying to flank around behind me. I have brought the Iron Drakes. This is just the normal one, not the Scolder Guard, but they have been reworked so that they have the 2-second pump animation that they used to play is gone now. So they fire faster, they have been made a little bit more viable, and when they're only 900 gold, certainly on a Ultra Funds battle, it's not too hard to field them. Here are some Rangers with great weapons. They have throwing axes, and they can kind of hold out okay in melee combat. They're not going to destroy any units, but they are going to be able to hold out relatively well. And we have Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, which have the 25% bigger unit size and more HP. Oops, just pressed escape there. But the Ironbreakers up front are going to be trying to hold down against this massive charge from the greenskins that's coming in, and Oakley will be trying to flank around the sides with his Squig Hoppers and Wolf Riders and some of the more powerful cavalry units. Here we got some of Durkit's Squig Hoppers. They are the Regiment of Renown. That is a bit of an increased, or bit of an improvement over the regular Squig Hopper. And they have, I believe, missile resistance, which is not particularly useful for a cavalry unit, but not the worst thing in the world, I guess. And they have improved stats as well. In the center, the Orc Boys are moving up and getting destroyed by my Grudge Throwers and the Rock Lobbers that are coming in. Each time one of those massive stones hits them in the face, greenskins are going to have a very bad day, going to get ripped apart by my artillery. And Oakley is really spread out. So he's just trying to get his guys around the flank before he engages in the center, because he'll be crashing into a brick wall, basically, with the Ironbreakers. So definitely wants to make sure that he gets units into a flanking position first. Here comes Foot of Gork into my Norgrimling's Ironbreakers and some Rangers. I'm not going to do very much damage, actually. Didn't hit too many of the troops. And they have so much HP on ultra unit size that spells in general are just going to do less damage. Here comes the Giant. I do have 3 Quarrelers in the back, and the Iron Drakes ready to pour in fire on him. The Iron Drakes will not do a lot of damage to the Giant, but will give him a big leadership debuff. And then with the Quarrelers firing on top, that'll be really nice. Brain Bursts are going off from Wurrzag as well. And we're going to just pour in the fire on that Giant, who I think has gotten a little bit too far ahead of the rest of his army. And that's going to allow me to focus fire him down very quickly. Look at that. Already down at 2/3 HP. A couple more volleys, and that Giant should completely disintegrate. Over on the flank, Dwarf Warriors holding it down. Love Belegar's color scheme. Clan Angrund's dwarfs look even better than the regular dwarf color scheme, I think. I really like that the minor factions have been added. It adds some variety to multiplayer and is really, really nice touch. Quarrelers pouring in the fire, and the Giant is going to go down here. 3 Quarrelers firing in on a single entity, not going to go well. And actually, I think he squished some dwarfs there. Saw some units blow up. That was pretty cool. And we have the Iron Drake still pouring in the fire. Over on my left flank, the Skyhammer getting ready to go in and start dropping some bombs. Ironbreakers holding it down against the Savage Orcs, who are going to break and run from the field. But here comes Shelob, the Arachnarok Queen, getting ready to summon some Spiderlings and charge into the flank. Maybe deal with my Rangers and other squishy targets, but I do have the Dragonback Slayers back there to hopefully hold it down and prevent it from getting into too many important units. Squig Hoppers charged in. I don't like Squig Hoppers that much, but the regular Squigs that are 500 gold are amazing versus dwarfs. You have anti-infantry, armor-piercing bonuses, just an insane unit for 500 gold, and with cycle charging, you can just destroy dwarf infantry. Like, the Squigs were made to deal with dwarfs. They are insanely good. And here comes the Skyhammer, dropping those massive payloads on the Crimson Killerz and the rest of these Black Orcs and Big Guns as they charge in. This should be a juicy bomb run if I can drop another one, but might have lost micro, and I'm not really sure why I'm not dropping bombs here. There is a lot of stuff to micro in this battle, as you can imagine. The Giant is in a nice flanking position, smacking on some of my Dwarf Warriors who are breaking. And now the Dragonback Slayers and the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, with their flaming attacks and bonus first infantry, are going to get committed into melee. But the Arachnarok Queen has pulled through and is going to charge into the back of my Ironbreakers. That's going to do some serious damage. Look at them get sent flying. And now with the Black Orcs collapsing in as well, sandwiched between Black Orcs and the Arachnarok Spider, that will be a tough fight for the Ironbreakers for sure. Crimson Killerz going to work on some of these Great Weapon Rangers, and that should just be absolute devastation for the Rangers. Crimson Killerz with their AoE attacks going to work there. I don't like that they don't do the splash damage attack. It kind of makes it obvious they have the AoE attack going on, and they don't have that. They kind of just wave their dual-wielding weapons around. I'm not a huge fan of that animation, but here comes the Effigy of the Git that will do some DPS to all of these troops in an AoE and freeze them in place. Not the best use of it, because again, it is designed to do damage to single-target entities, and holding down a bunch of my units over there, not super important because they were already engaged. But here's my Rune Lord fighting some of the Broken Tusk mob, which is a Regiment of Renown for the Orc Warboy Big Guns. And my Rune Lord is going to work here. I do have the Unbreakable Rune attached to him, so he'll be able to fight for a long time. And he is casting Rune of Wrath and Ruin on some of those cav units over on that side to deplete their HP somewhat. The Goblin Lobber is dead at this point. I think the crew was killed by the Giant, and the Savage Orcs are kind of overwhelming me on this side. Old Grumblers are in melee and might be able to beat that one Savage Orc unit, but there's so much fire coming in from the Rusty Heirs and the other Night Goblin units over on that side that's going to be pretty tough. A lot of my units are getting their armor sundered over there. And in the center, Shelob still causing massive amounts of havoc, beating up on my Peak Gate Guard and the Dragonback Slayers, slamming those massive tendrils, the big legs, down into the ground, and impaling some of my Dwarf Warriors. But looks like the Rune of Oath and Steel getting cast. You can see that massive AoE. Actually, that might be Rune of Negation. It looks a little bit smaller than the 75 meter AoE. Might have been just the 45 meter AoE for the 44% damage reduction, but that'll help a lot in that fight because they're fighting a giant effing spider. And as you can imagine, that thing will do a lot of damage if you don't have that damage reduction. The Night Goblins are still firing in, and my right flank has broken, but my left flank is doing a little bit better. And here comes Wurrzag on Spleen Ripper, doing a good job cycle charging and getting into the back of some of my Dwarf Warriors. And we'll see what he can do. He can hold it down in melee pretty well for an Orc Shaman. And he also has some abilities that give him a bigger Wind of Magic pool to work with, so he can also cast a lot as well. This giant over here going to get sniped down by my Quarrelers, which have done a really good job focus firing on both of his giants. Neither of them made a huge impact on the battle because I focus fired on them so well. Iron Drakes pouring in their Infernos, doing quite a bit of damage to some tied down Savage Orcs, and the Skyhammer still on Overwatch, pouring in some fire. I think it might be out of bombs at this point, but actually I think it has like 75 or 80 kills, so it made a pretty big impact on those bombing runs. My artillery crews are stuck in melee now as well. Dragonback Slayer is going to work, and the Rune Lord still tanking it out in the center like a boss, smacking people with the hammer. And I just love the model on the Rune Lord. He looks so cool. He's really fun to use, and he's very good at buffing up your troops, as you can imagine. So I definitely recommend using him if you haven't already. Orc Chariot causing some havoc in the back lines, but gonna get mismicroed a bit as it charges in. It's gonna get stuck into the middle of a bunch of Quarrelers, and with my Iron Drakes pouring in fire from behind, I think that Orc Chariot is going to rout very soon. Doesn't seem to be able to pull through this block of Quarrelers, and it is gonna go down, which is pretty important because in the late game, an Orc Chariot could have done so much damage to my range units, and that would have been very bad. Dragonback Slayer is chasing off some of these Savage Orcs, and it seems like this is starting to shift in my favor a little bit. The Hammerers and other units are just smacking these Savage Orcs, and they should run very soon, but Wurrzag is still alive. He is still a threat. I've broken Oakley's right flank, but the center is still kind of up for grabs, and some of his units on his left flank have come back and are causing some problems. Nasty Skulkers out on that flank as well. Might be able to make it into my Ironbreakers, or my Iron Drakes rather, but he does have some skirmish units still pouring in fire, and that Sunder Armor ability is still going to work on the Rusty Arrers. Wurrzag is tied down, but he should be able to pull out here and maybe go for the Iron Drakes, which I think will be his next target. Maybe the Quarrelers as well. Might be able to shatter them, which would be bad here in the late game. Don't want to be allowing him to just run around for free. And he is going to buff up his own Lord here. And looks like he's going straight for the Quarrelers. The back line of those, with that massive axe, should be able to chop some of them down to size. Send them flying. And Splinter Up is a really cool looking model too. Gives him a lot of mobility. He is a buff lord, and he is a caster, so I think you want to give him that kind of mobility so that he can quickly get from flank to flank. And he's just pulling through right now, goring a bunch of my Quarrelers on the front of those tusks, and the Iron Drakes firing again, causing that big morale debuff for these big uns. And the remnants of my Norgrimling's Ironbreakers are still stuck in melee. One of them just got beheaded. That looked painful. And firing in from the back and sandwiched between fire and the Ironbreakers, those big guns should shatter. But Wurrzag is still an issue, and he's still charging into my Iron Drakes. And I think he's about to do some serious damage to them. Oh god, yeah. Sending them flying. Oh, look at how far that guy just went flying. And now here's another good use of the Effigy of the Git. Again, not going to do a massive amount of damage to my Slayers. Will do some DPS to them, but you do want to use it on single targets unless you're trying to block charges. Was a good use there, but it wasn't enough. Managed to prevent my Slayers from charging in and tying him down, but the army losses penalty kicked in, and the Rune Lord is going to take the field for Clan Angrund. So pretty interesting battle there. Really big one. I just love those ultra size unit battles. They're just a lot of fun. Very cinematic. Again, not the most, maybe not the most tactical always, but very, very nice to watch. So, looking at the kills here, you can see that my Rune Lord didn't do too much killing, but the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, 218 kills, Pete Gateguard, 101, both pretty solid. The Goblaba, 59 kills, that's decent. Skyhammer, 88. So all of that is pretty okay. Dwarf Warriors didn't seem to hold out too well, even buffed up by the Rune Lord. And then looking at the Savage Orcs, the Bloody Handz Tribe, we had Giants with 26 kills each. They didn't do very much. but his Krimson Killerz 133 kills and Black Orcs with 162. Hope you guys enjoyed that battle, and we're bringing you some more content from the King and the Warlord DLC very soon.